This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by Monster Products. The headphones on my head right now, the Monster Elements, available in on-ear, over-ear, and in-ear, plus all kinds of other styles. Whether you're doing stuff in a studio and you want the Elements, you want something that you can easily run with, and you want the iSports, or you're looking for a portable speaker, whether it be the little tiny Hot Shot or the giant Monster Blaster. They've got them all, and of course all of the cables and power to make hooking up those devices and more, including your computer. We run Monster Power exclusively here in the studio to make that experience better for you. And of course, the Monster Outlet Store is unbelievable. The Monster Blaster, usually $449 in the outlet store, $200. Sometimes you get refurb, sometimes you save 50% because the package is damaged. Honestly, it's worth taking a look at if you're in the market for a new product, and you can find all of that by going to f5live.tv/monster. And that music means that it is time for the Piltch Point with online editorial director of Laptop Magazine and Tom's Guide, Avram Piltch. Avram.
Hey!
We have been talking a lot over the last, 2 months about Intel and the Core, 8th Gen Core. But AMD has been trying to challenge Intel a lot lately too, right?
Yeah, so a small piece of history. When I was younger, AMD used to be a real powerhouse challenger to Intel. This was obviously like in the 90s, before a lot of people were getting laptops. In the desktop space, my friends and I would go and we'd buy motherboards, we'd build systems. I probably almost every year or two I would change my motherboard and CPU, and usually I would get AMD because you get more power for less money, and AMD was the first to do certain things. Like AMD might be was the first to have multi-core processors. So
we used to run AMD in the studio.
So AMD was fantastic. And then, for reasons I don't know, AMD started to not be as competitive on the high end. AMD was a budget play. I don't think it wasn't considered to be the highest end in the fastest. What did make you the fastest desktops, and in the laptop world, it's been strictly bargain basement stuff. Every now and again you'll get a laptop that's like $800, $1,000. I think there was an HP EliteBook that we tested, and yet the performance of them has, frankly, on all the ones that we've tested, which we don't see a ton of them in, we see a lot that are in like $300 laptops. The performance has not been very good. The performance has been blah. The battery life has been blah, and sometimes we've had systems that got hot too. So it hasn't been an impressive run for AMD in the past few years, particularly on laptops. This year on desktops, they came out with Ryzen, which is their new CPU platform, and wow, Ryzen, what a big deal! Like, all of a sudden they're catching up to Intel in the speed game, and people are very excited. They have a processor called Threadripper, which I think has how many cores does Threadripper have? 16?
Available up to 16 cores.
16 cores processor.
So 32 with virtualization.
Yeah, so absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's not the mainstream Ryzen. That's like your high-end Ryzen. But
it's the one we're thinking about for in here, though.
Yeah, so you never have enough threads. So now it looks like AMD is ready to factually compete with Intel on performance. In past years when we talked to them, it's always like, yeah, we'll give you a little bit better graphics for about the same money as a budget Intel laptop. Now they're coming out with Ryzen Mobile, which was just announced on Thursday. So what does Ryzen Mobile give you? Well, it claims to be performance competitive with Intel 8th Gen Core. Ryzen Mobile is going to be, at some point they may come out with more chips, but the first 2 chips are going to be quad core with 4 cores and 8 8 threads. So just like Intel 8 Gen Core, there's going to be a just like Intel, they have a Ryzen 5 and a Ryzen 7. It's had a lot like a Core i5 and a Core i7.
Sure sounds familiar.
Uh, and they also are going to be default to using 15 watts, just like a standard laptop U series, Intel U series processor. Now, what's special about these and why you might get excited is the graphics are definitely going to be better than Intel integrated graphics. They use AMD's Vega graphics, which AMD Radeon Vega graphics, which are definitely supposed to be, and I think even Intel would admit, better than the Intel UHD 620 graphics that you get built in, unless you go and get an external graphics card. It claims to do much better turbo modes in terms of controlling the clock speed. It can iterate the clock speed in measures of 25 megahertz at a time across all 4 cores or each core, so that it can really do a good job of trying to figure out, well, just how much boost can I possibly give you. It uses something which I think has to come from Thanos' closet called Infinity Fabric, and the Infinity Fabric is a set of sensors that kind of stitch together the processor, the GPU, and the display engine, the memory controller, the I/O, all that stuff. And so it can really supposed to do a really fine-grained job of figuring out how much heat and power is being used by all the different parts of the chip, and then is able to sort of give you more power. It also makes available something called XFR, which is extended frequency range, which means if a laptop maker wishes to, and I think this also happens on desktop, wishes to give much better cooling than standard, like, wow, I'm going to make my laptop a little bigger, put some extra cooling pipes, fans, whatever, then the turbo mode can just keep going up to higher and higher frequencies, almost like an automatic overclock. So we haven't gotten in an AMD Ryzen mobile CPU yet, but here's what we know. There are 3 systems coming out in time for holiday that will have it. One of them is the HP Envy X360 that will be out with now. Another is the Lenovo IdeaPad 720S, and the other is the Acer Swift 3. So all of those are already on the market with Intel chips. So we're going to do our best to get in one of each, hopefully as similarly configured as possible, and do an apples to apples test of like this exact laptop. We tried it with AMD and with Intel, and what was the difference?
That would be awesome.
Battery life, performance, all that stuff. So those are coming out. None of them is out yet. We don't know what the price is going to be. Our expectation is that they will be slightly cheaper than a similar Intel, and yet offer similar, or in some cases, particularly with graphics, better performance than Intel. So some of the test results that they claim, this is, and by the way, we have this story on laptopmag.com, FAQ, everything you need to know about Ryzen Mobile. They claim that on, like, say, for example, 3D Mark Time Spy, which is a graphics test, an AMD Ryzen 7 got like almost 3 times the score, 3 times the performance of a Core i7. They also claim that you will be able to play some games. You could always play some games on integrated graphics, but it'll be better than you have ever been able to do before without discrete graphics. So they claim that League of Legends will run at 59 frames per second with their Vega graphics. They claim that Overwatch, although you have to drop the resolution down to 720p, will run at 66 frames per second.
Wow.
In other words, yes, you may be able to do. I mean, we'll put these claims to the test, but you may be able to do some kind of, a little bit better gaming than you could do on a standard. These are supposed to be in sort of thin and light laptops. What we This is only the beginning for AMD, though. They said, listen, this is our first wave of processors, but we will see more. I expect that we will hear about them perhaps around the time frame of CES, that we will hear about them going into larger laptops like gaming laptops and things like that, with higher wattage processors that would take on Intel's higher wattage processors. But for now, this is just an interesting space for us to watch to see whether you do get more performance for less or more performance for the same price with Ryzen Mobile. And of course, I'll be watching very carefully how it affects battery life, because even if you give me slightly better graphics performance, if the battery life sinks down on my ultra portable laptop, I'm not going to be very happy about that.
Right, for sure. Getting there are only few scenarios in which a increased graphics capability could make a lower battery scenario acceptable, and it's a very small edge case for users.
Well,
for 99% of the people out in the wild, they want their battery to not suck.
I mean, if you're buying a gaming laptop that weighs 8 pounds, then you probably don't care about battery life.
Yeah, you know what you're getting into, or if you're using it for gaming or video editing or something like that, you know what you're getting into. You know that you're accepting the loss of battery. But for 99% of the people out on the market, battery life is a huge decision maker.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not. It remains. We will see how it handles it. That's my biggest question: is how is the battery life going to be? How is the heat going to be? Those sorts of things. And we look forward to finding out more about it. If you want to find out more about Ryzen Mobile today, please go to laptopmag.com. We have our Ryzen Mobile FAQ up there. And as we actually get these systems in and we can do tests, that is going to be something that I'm really looking forward to doing and sharing with everyone. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about it here. Similarly, we've done, as I talked about a couple weeks ago, we've done some apples to apples tests with 8th gen and 7th gen core, but we're going to do some more. We just got in. Intel was kind enough to provide us with a couple of identical Acer Swift 3 laptops for kind of a before and after with 8th and 7th gen. So while we did it with a couple of Dell XPSs, XPS 13s, now we're going to do this with this other system, and Intel has been really meticulous about making sure not only are they the same laptop, but that they have the same SSD in them and the same RAM and stuff like that, which even if you buy two laptops one year after another, like the XPS 13, it's possible that they used a different vendor for that stuff. So there's more to come on 8th versus 7th and on AMD versus Intel.
Fantastic. Well, I obviously personally look forward to seeing that. I always love when things like this happen. You guys do these like really detailed, like you said, the apples to apples. Here is what a very changing one thing out does to the overall system. I love that stuff. So always appreciated, and I cannot wait until you get some of these AMD systems in your hand.
Yeah, me neither. Well, let's hope it'll be soon.
Absolutely.